Okay, so we are looking at Jerusalem from the western viewpoint. Right, this gatehouse that we see right in front of us, that's where Jaffa Gate is roughly today. Right? And just to the right of Jaffa Gate, we see these beautiful sort of pagoda looking buildings. Those are the palaces, right? Those are the two palaces that Herod built for himself. Right? Because guys, let's be honest, why have one palace when you could build two for twice the price? Right, and Josephus talks about how he had porticos and colonnades and pools, sort of that dotted the area in between the palaces. Now, just to the north of the palace, he built three gigantic towers. Right, one, and he names them. One he names after an army buddy of his, a man named Hippicus. He names another one for his older brother who dies young, Faisal. And he names the third one after his favorite wife, Miriam. Right now, his favorite wife, Miriam, was his second wife. And he marries her for political reasons because she is a member of the Hasmonean family, which is the last Jewish dynasty. Right, and so by marrying her, he's legitimizing his rule. Now, and he's going to have two children with her. Now, because her children are members of this last Hasmonean dynasty, right? They, in theory, can be a threat to him. And he is worried about this. And while he hears at one point that Miriam is sort of having an affair and she's maybe going to try to usurp Herod and place her sons or one of her sons right on the throne instead, who would be more than welcomed by the people, right? So he has Miriam killed. And Josephus says that he very much later laments and regrets this decision to murder Miriam, and he will dip her body in honey to preserve her, like embalming fluid, sort of like embalming, right? But Herod missed her so much, right, that the other reason he dips her in honey to preserve her is because he wanted to practice necrophilia. Right now, so he names one of these. Yes. This is how crazy Herod is, right? And by the way, those two sons that he has with her, he will end up murdering them as well, right? He'll end up killing a third son of his just before his death, right? His oldest son, Antipater. I feel kind of bad for that guy actually, because when he marries Miriam, he kind of he exiles his first wife Dora and their son, and later he ends up kind of bringing them back into the fold. And in fact, this son is one of the reasons why he ends up killing his two sons for Miriam. He's telling his father that they're plotting to overthrow him. And by the way, they probably were. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually were. Right? Augustus Caesar says that it was better to be Herod's pig than to be a member of his family. Right? And this tells you two things. One, that he was quite a sadistic person who kills members of his family. And two, Herod kept kosher, because he wouldn't eat the pig. He was not going to kill the pig. Pig's perfectly safe. Right now, these gigantic towers are going to be dominating the scene over here. And interestingly enough, this is actually where Titus, when he comes right in the year 70, and he starts breaking into the walls of the city of Jerusalem, he breaks through pretty much right here, just to the left of the gatehouse, right? Breaks through right over here. And we're doing archaeological digs today around this area, and we're finding all sorts of military paraphernalia, like swords and like sort of these stone cannonballs, so to speak, a ballista. Now Titus, right, after he conquers the whole city, he's going to go in through the third wall, then he's going to go in through the second wall right over there, then he's going to take the Antonia fortress, and that's going to be quite a battle, right? Very dramatic scenes happening, right, for the Antonia fortress. Pretty much dismantles the Antonia fortress, right? Almost brick by brick or stone by stone. Takes the Temple Mount to the south and then sort of wraps around, goes down the city of David, right? And then conquers the western ridge, right, where all the priests live. Now he's going to leave these towers standing as a testament to his military prowess, because despite the fact that this has three walls, and guys, a city having three walls in the ancient, at this time period was not so common. Right, it was a very, very well-defended city. This is one of the reasons why Titus waits until this point to finally take the city. right? But he takes it and he leaves these towers standing as a testament, because despite the fact that this city has 3 walls and these gigantic towers looking, I was still able to break through Dafka at this particular point with the towers looking over me. That's how great of a military commander I am. Right now, over time, these towers are going to be damaged by earthquakes and wars. And by the time the Romans become Byzantine and start looking at these things with new eyeglasses, right, with Christian eyes, they're like, wow, who could have built? There's only one tower left. Who could have built this tower? It's so grand and beautiful. Oh, it must have been David, because David, right, is a great king, and he would have built something like this. And so it's called the Tower of David, right? That area today is called the Tower of David, and only one, just the base, just the foundation, really, of this tower is left today, right? But it's not. But we know, right? You should know, because I've said this many times. The city of Jerusalem doesn't come anywhere near, right, the area Jaffa Gate during the time of David. Right? David's city is just a small little sliver until 300 years later, when Hezekiah, right, that the city is going to expand this far. Right? But never let facts get in the way of a good story. Right? Now, we can see the beginning of the second wall, just beyond these towers, heading this way and then looping around sort of in a fishhook to the right. On the way to the north, you can see a gatehouse, right, with like these paved, sort of like stone paved sidewalk, right, leading up to it, right? And just, if you're walking out this gate, right, from the interior of the city, you're walking out the gate, you look and you go to the right, you see all these rocks, right? That's the hill of Golgotha, right? And the burial place and the tombs, right, that were outside the city walls, right? So where those rocks are, right, that is where the Church of the Holy Sepulcher is today. Right, so if the trial of Jesus did take place in the Antonia Fortress, right, he would have come out those large steps, walked down, right, to the west in our direction, right, walking roughly the Via Dolorosa where we walked, for better or for worse, right, coming out and then being crucified just outside of the gates over here. Right, now if I mentioned that there was another alternative site that some other people, like Protestant groups mainly, they think that they have the idea that maybe the trial actually would have taken place at the palace, right, of King Herod, because that's where Pontius Pilate would have been staying. And then if that were true, then he would have left out the palace and then gone out this gatehouse. There's possibly another gatehouse that they found, but it's not really kind of displayed here in this area. Right, but it's unknown exactly where the trial takes place. Now, if you stand here, right, and you look at the western wall, and you have these towers on the right-hand side. Keep the towers on the right, and then keep the wall, right, the aqueduct/bridge on the left. You can see a red arrow pointing right on the western wall. Right, that red arrow is where you are actually standing when you're standing in front of the western wall. If you're too far to the left, you're not really going to see the arrow. You kind of have to be in this little sweet spot where you can see this red arrow right on the western wall, just below sort of these pillars of the western wall, these areas that kind of stick out, pilasters they're called. Oh, last thing, I don't know, I always find something else to talk about. This large monolith structure with the pyramid on top, that is to sort of symbolize the tomb of David. Right, on Mount Zion today, there is a traditional location of the Tower of David, which is also associated with the upper room. It's kind of technically the same building. But as I mentioned, right, or maybe I didn't mention this, but David's tomb wouldn't have been there, right? It wouldn't have been on the western ridge, because it says in the Bible that they buried David within the city walls, right? In the city walls of Jerusalem, again, right over there. It's possible that the tomb of David sort of gets transferred, gets confused with another king, like a Hasmonean king that might have been buried up on Mount Zion, because Josephus says that there is a king buried around here. So maybe sort of the idea that a king, right, is buried over here gets transferred from this Hasmonean to David for whatever reason. This takes place usually around the Middle Ages, actually, like around 1000 or something like this, 10th century CE or AD. Any questions? All right, let's look at Jerusalem from the north. So here we're seeing these neighborhoods, right, built in between the second and third wall that we eventually encase within. We can see the side of Golgotha from this angle, right? We can see a little bit more of the rocks in the tomb. We can also see another monolithic structure. In fact, you can actually see this gate now. Okay, if the trial of Jesus took place at the palace, there is a gatehouse that they found, and it's actually interesting. It's called the Ginat Gate, which means the garden gate, by the way, which is interesting because it says Jesus is buried right in a garden. And so you can actually see that gatehouse right now. Actually, just you see this large tower with sort of the domed roof, the dome on top. Right, go all the way down to the base, and you can see just a little gatehouse right in front of it. Looks like an empty pool. Right, and just to the right of it, you see this large monolithic structure with like a pyramid on top. Actually, not really monolith, but a structure with a pyramid on top. Right, that's a tomb of the Hasmonean kings. Right, Josephus says, right, that in that area there are tombs for sure of Hasmonean kings. Maybe Alexandrianus, one of these great Maccabean kings. Right, but we can see looking now at the second wall, we can see this gatehouse just on the north side of the second wall. Right, that's Damascus Gate. Right, that's the gate that Paul would have walked out of on his way to Damascus. Hence the name, because the road leads to the north, right, leads to Damascus. Now right over here, in this like moon crescent shaped rock formation, right, that is the Garden Tomb. Right, this is the alternative site for crucifixion and burial. And you guys are going to go visit it today in a few hours or so. So this is where that is in relation to, right, where the city is, and how far outside the city it would have been, right, if this is where the second wall, the path of the second wall. Now we see a lot of these houses with like these regular houses with a lot of these domes, and you'll even see this today in modern, like, or in old city, right? These domes are like the best version of the air conditioning that the ancient people could have, right? This allows for air circulation in the house, right? These dome structures, right, allowing for a little bit of a breeze to come through and try to cool you off as best you can. Any questions? All right, let's head this way.